Morning, everyone. My name is Danny Ferrier from Danny Ferrier Coaching. And there's a theme that has been coming up and reoccurring time and time again around the uncertainty of the future that we go into. And we think it's just now, but actually the future has always been uncertain. And so I'd love to share with you how, as a leader, we can move forward and lead through uncertainty. And it's really about our relationship with ambiguity that is going to make or break the way that we lead people through this change. So I'd love to bring light to why it is that we crave certainty in the first place. Because as human beings, back in the day when there was lions and tigers and bears, we needed to have this natural stress response in us to keep us safe, to notice when something was stressful or something was too hard. We needed to shut down and protect ourselves, otherwise we wouldn't survive. But now lions and tigers and bears aren't the threat. Now it's the constructs in our mind that is the threat, the things that we think are going to harm us, or the things that can cause us stress, and we're interpreting it like we used to back in the day when we used to have lions and tigers and bears and we shut down. But now we've evolved through that. And we know that we can handle so much more now than we were ever able to back in the day. But that mechanism within us still plays out. So it's completely normal for us to want to protect ourselves and to stay in that comfort zone. So as a leader, knowing that it is so important and imperative for us to lean in when things get hard, to know that it is our responsibility to grow ourselves through these experiences, and as a result of that, become a better person. But that doesn't start until we have a solid purpose in life. Because if you imagine, as a contrast, if you don't have a clear goal of where you're heading, any road bump becomes a mountain. It becomes too hard because we don't have any energy to bring us to the other side of it if we don't have a clear purpose. So that's one of the things I'm going to talk about today, is how we can develop a purpose for ourselves that's going to help us lead us through all of this uncertainty. One of the major benefits of leaning into uncertainty and being able to lead our teams through it is that we are allowing ourselves to build that muscle of change. And because we know from what I mentioned previously that it doesn't happen naturally for us to lean into change. It needs to be a conscious decision. But what happens is, once we've made that decision to lean into change and to be okay with uncertainty, guess what happens? Our team members start to notice, and energetically, they start to take more risks too. The thing about our team members is that we are, hello, whoever just signed on there, we are a mirror. And whatever environment we want to create, we need to have that attitude first as a leader. And when we have the attitude of leaning into uncertainty, our team members will then start to trust themselves to take more risks. Now, as a contrast to this, if you don't have a good relationship with uncertainty and you're too busy trying to keep yourself safe, then energetically, your team members will also be trying to keep you safe. And I'm going to guess that if you've got a energy or an attitude around everything needs to be certain, everything needs to be okay, you're probably not noticing in team members their ability to take risks. You're probably not noticing how you are creating an environment that is limited because of your attitude towards change. And that attitude is what's going to restrict businesses in the future who aren't going to move with the times and be okay with going into a new market or diversifying or looking at what is available to you if you're trying to keep yourself safe and trying to keep things really certain. Another part to this is that it costs us a lot of energy. when we are trying to keep everything certain. Because of that stress response that I mentioned earlier, we inherently have the ability to notice what's scary and notice what stresses us out. And if we are too busy trying to keep ourselves certain, then we're going to continue to focus on how to keep ourselves certain. And that focus is going to take lots of our energy. Now, if you imagine you flip it on its head and you start to notice what things are outside of our comfort zone, just how many more possibilities are available to us. Our brain can only interpret so much information, and it's constantly bringing things in and interpreting it through our filters. So if you weren't focusing on trying to keep yourself certain, trying to keep all your ducks in a row, what could you be focusing on instead? And that's always a payoff for our energy, how we can make sure that we're focusing on the things that really matter. And keeping ourselves safe is something that is going to really limit us. So as a leader, having a choice to focus on what else is available out there. The word inspire literally means to breathe life into somebody. And as a leader, we need to fine-tune our ability to breathe life into our teams. And what I've noticed is most business owners, they aren't certain about the future because they don't trust their team enough to be able to carry the weight through all of the hardships. I'm going to say that again because I think it's quite important. They don't trust their teams to be able to handle it. And like I said before, leadership is a mirror. So maybe it's not about trusting your team, but it's trusting you, trusting yourself to be able to breathe life into that team, to be able to pull you through the hard times. So what's the first thing that we can do? The first thing as a leader we can do is to build that trust with ourselves. And we do that by keeping the promises that we make to ourselves. Those small things that we say to people, being on time, making a claim and being able to follow through. That's what builds trust as a leader. And then you will start to notice that your relationship with ambiguity changes because you know that regardless of what happens in the future, you can trust yourself to handle it. And then, as an extension to that, can trust yourself to inspire your team to handle it. The other thing I mentioned was to have a really clear purpose. Simon Sinek talks about this all the time, and I'm sure you've heard it. Start with why. Why are you doing what you're doing? It's completely normal to burn out if you are not being sustainable as a leader by having a really solid mission that's emotionally engaging your whole team and yourself. So what is your purpose? What is your personal mission as a business owner? And I can tell you that making money isn't a grandiose enough reason to go to work every day. It needs to be something with a lot of depth. And the way you do this is to create time in your week to step back, to look at the bigger picture, and to ask yourself a few really important questions. What does success look like, and why does it matter? And that, whatever your answer is, can become a truly inspiring mission for you and your team. And when things get hard, when the shit hits the fan, you've got a really solid mission to hold on to bring everyone through. If you'd like to know more about how you can figure out your company mission, and if you're not quite sure yet what your own personal purpose is as a leader, I would love to be able to help you with that. Because it's also about pressing pause on life and figuring out what is truly lighting up your soul, and how are you going to bring that into the center picture every time you feel stressed or every time you need to lean into uncertainty. How can you bring back that mission to soldier on through? The next part to this is practicing being outside of your comfort zone. There's a really interesting phenomenon that happens once we start to commit to being uncomfortable and being okay with being uncomfortable. So what can you do every week that's going to get you out of your comfort zone? Maybe it's applying to do a presentation at a group that you've never been to before. Maybe it's calling that one client that you've been avoiding so that you can ask them to upgrade. Maybe it's having the conversation with your mum that you've been shying away from. Every single time we do these things and we get that little feeling of stress within us that we don't want to do it and we want to stay comfortable, every time we choose not to, we are winning because we're learning how to build that muscle of uncertainty, exposing ourselves where we might not be safe because it's a challenge, because those conversations are hard. That's what we want to do, is make sure that we are choosing to be outside of the comfort zone rather than defaulting and keeping ourselves safe in the comfort zone. The next part is to have a great support network around you. As a leader, shit does go wrong and life gets really, really challenging when you've got so many plates in the air. So who's on your team? Do you have a coach or a mentor or somebody who can help you to understand the greater version of yourself that you might not be able to see yet? They're your champions, the people that can ask you the real solid questions because you know that they truly care for you and your best interests. They're also the ones that can call you out if you are getting stuck in that need for certainty, and they can hear that. They can gently help you realize that you are avoiding something by asking you really solid questions. Another example of having someone on your team is making sure that one of your delegated people, you have a consistent catch up with them, because we cannot see outside of our own minds. We are on an automatic loop inside of our own mind, and the brain does this on purpose to save energy. There's no point in making new synaptic connections if there's a current path already there. We don't need to waste energy, so the brain won't do it. But when you've got someone else challenging you and you've got that consistent person reflecting back to you who you are being, that's going to help you get outside of your own comfort zone, which is your own mind. A lot of people don't reach out for help or have this support network these days because they feel they can do it on their own. But I can tell you that back in the day, it took a village to raise a human, because everybody in that community was sharing their opinions. They were able to debate. They were able to help everybody understand a different version of reality. So find out, who do you want on your team? What are their results like? How are they showing up at life? How are they inspiring you to be better? So I trust that this gives you some really tangible ways to be able to show up with that certainty as a leader, that you're okay with having uncertainty and being in that space, because you know that's truly going to bring your team on a wicked and wild adventure, heading towards your mission and inspiring everybody along the way. I'm Dani Feria. Thanks for tuning in. See you soon.